Hey everyone, Matt Woodruff here. I'm the one from Jamf, and so I get to introduce this because of just my fascination with Allen. And with that, what I want to do is take you through just real quick. Where'd he go? Um, one of the things as a Jamf I just kind of want you guys to be aware of is, one, we're very thankful you're all here, and as an SC, it gets pretty exhausting, and something I put up on social media is we're very excited at Jamf to have such incredibly smart individuals jumping up on stage and presenting all of these various aspects of very difficult and complex situations, and that's what's happened at NASA. They were in a very difficult and complex situation in getting smart cards supported on the macOS platform because, as Allen will go through, there's some mandates in place for this. So with that, let's go through the agenda really quickly for what this session is and what we're going to go through. We're making sure everything's working. Okay, good. So this particular session, we want to be very clear, is not going to go over the history of smart cards and understanding where it was, what it is, token D, crypto token kit, all of that stuff. We're going to be very focused on the solution that NASA has built out, what they've been able to do with the Macs. And so we have smart card configurations and how Jamf Pro, I'll kind of go through some of the details of what Jamf Pro is and how we helped with this type of configuration within their environment, and maybe what there are some plans to do next, and maybe even how Jamf Connect helps with some of this. So with that, here's Allen and his part of the presentation.
Thanks, Matt. So as he said, I'm Allen Golbig. I work at NASA. We have centers all over the US, and even some iPads on the ISS. You're going to see. Our two major locations for our Mac population are at Ames Research Center and Goddard Space Flight Center.
Yeah, so with Goddard, one of the things that Allen wanted me to highlight just really quickly is actually a couple of individuals that are in the room with us. Goddard is one of the major focus points for NASA overall because of a very large Mac population. And with that, we're thankfully growing that centerpiece of what Goddard's doing and helping us build out that component of it.
So I'm based out of Glenn Research Center in Cleveland, Ohio. Yes, there's a center in Cleveland, as most people didn't know that. I started there about a year and a half ago, and at that time I had never used a smart card in my life. So I had some learning to do, learned about all the requirements that were needed for us. These are just a few. Basically what it means is use your smart card to log into your system and have it on you at all times. It's kind of where the don't forget your badges comes from. I've added to the notes some short light reading for you guys. So if you really like reading federal government documents, they're all in there. This talk is mainly going to talk about machine-based enforcement. What that means is the MDM is controlling the system. It's requiring your users to use their smart cards to log into their systems. Ultimately, we want to go to user-based enforcement. Some of us can already do that. What that means is your network password is removed from your account. So along with using your MDM to manage the system, your accounts are also getting their AD passwords removed. And that's all I'm going to talk about, the background and the history. Let's get into the configuration. There are two ways you can configure a Mac for smart cards. That is pairing or attribute mapping. We went with attribute mapping, but I think it's important to talk about both so you can get a better idea of what you would want to do at your organization. So pairing, or also known as fixed key mapping, is GUI based. So if you've ever plugged in a smart card or configured a YubiKey to be a PIV, you get this prompt on your screen. We disable this prompt because it requires admin rights. So you can script something to have it so that your users can go to self-service. We actually did this originally so that you can get the information from the card and pair that to your local user account. This command prompt, so we're using the seauth command. There's a man page for it, but what we're doing is we're getting the unpaired identity from our for me, it was a YubiKey that I tested this with. And then I'm going to get the hash, and then I'm going to pair it to my local account. You can see it asks for my admin password. And that's kind of like the prompt you'll see. You'll get used to if you start using smart cards or YubiKeys. And then once you put your PIN in, you're also going to get asked to put in your local keychain password as well. And then once you do, you'll see here that we're now paired. So next time I go to the login screen, if I have that YubiKey in or have my smart card in, you'll have PIN instead of saying username and password. So attribute mapping, what we do with that is we look at certain certificate value fields on your card. For us, we're using NT principal name, but you can use other things like common name, the RFC 822 name. If you look at the man page for smart card services, you'll get a lot more information for that configuration. It also is scriptable. That's how we're doing it within self-service. If you're still binding to AD, this works pretty well for you. You won't need to get the attribute off of your cards because it's already in your AD record. And one neat thing, if you want to do pairing and mapping at the same time, so if you want to have a YubiKey in a machine for logging in, but you also put your card in at the same time, mapping will always take precedence. So here's an example of the attribute mapping file. And when I said earlier, we're using the NT principal name. So once that NT principal name is matched to this field in the alt security identities, when you put your card in, it will pop to PIN. I'll show you a little later on, and you'll see the example of how we took Matt's identity and put it into the local user account. Why did we go with mapping? It's more flexible. Users lose their cards, they could be stolen, your certs expire. New employees get what we call agency smart badges. They're temporary badges before their background check goes through. And instead of having them to go and ask us to take their machines out of PIV mandatory, all they have to do is put their card in, because the UPN value on the card is the same as the UPN value of their new card. And it's made it really easy for when an employee that I work with, their certs expire, they don't have to go to me and ask me to make the change in Jamf Pro. They just continue and work. It also allowed us to align with other platforms. Our Linux environment is using this for as well. And if you're still, again, using AD, which you shouldn't be binding, but if you are, it still works. So Matt said earlier we wouldn't talk about Token D. I'm going to talk a little bit about it. It's deprecated, and there are third-party software that still uses it. So Outlook, Adobe, and the reason they're using it is because their apps aren't supporting Crypto Token Kit. As well, you may want to see your certificates and keychain access. If you use CTK only, you can't use the GUI. You can use certain command line prompts like security export smart cards, or you can look in System Profiler to see some more information. But some people just like the GUI. It's friendly. It's what they're used to. If you do use Token D along with CTK, you will run into race conditions sometimes. So you may put your card in at the login window, and it may not switch to PIN. It'll sit a password, and you just don't know why. It may be because Outlook is sitting in the background and you never closed it. It could be anything. I will say in 10.14, I've seen this way less. If you want to learn a little bit more, Smart Card Services Legacy, there's a man page for that. This is an example of what it looks like, and that's not what it looks like in the slides, but and then here's kind of what it looks like once you have Token D, so you can see my certificates. This is what users like. If you use, say, Nomad or Enterprise Connect, you can also knock my mic. You can also see them as well. So back to Active Directory. So we're all unbinding. We're all local. We're using Jamf Pro to apply our management settings. When I say mitigate AD risks, if somebody walks off with my computer, they don't have resources to my server. It's all local to my machine. And we're getting our Kerberos tickets from Enterprise Connect PKI, but you can also get them from Jamf Connect, as they have the Nomad PK in it. For those who have not used it, Enterprise Connect PKI, it's offered by Apple Professional Services. It's an extension of Enterprise Connect and offers smart card support. It's fully 100% Apple supported. One of the downfalls, I think, is that it does not work in an LDAP environment, but if you wanted to, you can use Jamf Connect. I think Matt was going to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, only because you guys know that the Nomad PK Init was the product before we went and purchased Orchard and Grove. So Jamf Connect's the new platform, obviously. This is the old icon with it. And as we continue to evolve this particular product and hopefully get to the point where I hope all of you were able to make the keynote where you actually saw the Azure login screen kind of take over the login window itself. We're hoping to continue to develop around that where you could enforce, with the help of Jamf Connect, smart card authentication at that particular screen, and that way that could be the process of automatically creating some user accounts that exist on the device using the PIN, especially when you do attribute mapping.
And some of the other advantages of Jamf Connect or Nomad PK Init is it lets you connect to multiple domains, so you can have multiple identities and get Kerberos tickets from both. There's a command line interface. It does work with LDAP. It does local password sync. So those are just a few. So you do have those choices. So how did we configure our systems? We're using configuration profiles to push down a payload and apply the appropriate keys. We're going to go over a few of those now. The first one we're going to go over is user pairing. A bunch of these are being applied to com.applesecurity.smartcard, but user pairing is that pairing dialog. If you disable this, the dialog goes away. So if your users are not admins, disable this. If you're doing attribute mapping, you probably want to disable this because you don't want them pairing. Maybe you do, that's up to you. Allow smartcard, basically it allows it to do everything. So if you disable this, you can still do SMIME and you can still connect to websites and user auths to connect to that. But if you set this to true, which you're going to want to, then you can use it for logins, screensaver unlock, and other authorizations within the OS. This is a super important one. Check certificate trust. Two things you should know here. Don't set to 0 and probably don't set to 3. We set to 2, which allows us to check the certificates on our systems to make sure that the card has the same certificates that we trust, and also allows it to do a soft revocation. So if the certs on my card expire and I'm on network, they'll get revoked. The card won't work. But if I'm off network with 2, I'll still be able to get in to my system so I can continue working. So if I'm still an employee, which I hope I am after this talk, but if I'm still an employee, I would be able to get in even though I'm off the network. With 3, if you can't hit your network and it can't do the OCSP or CRL, then you won't be able to get into your system. So 3 is really designed for stationary systems. And on enrollment, we actually add the certs that we need to add to our system for it to trust the cards. So if anybody here is from the federal government, if you know that in 1014 they removed Federal Common Policy CA, you're going to want to add that to your systems at a time of enrollment to make sure that certificate trust would work. So 1 card per user, that's pretty explanatory. We set this to false because we have admins who need to get onto systems. So we have a script that allows them to map multiple identities to a local admin account, and it's been a big win for our deployments at the other centers. For our group itself, we only have our accounts, so we don't use this, but in general, if you have admins who need to get onto your systems and they have a shared local account, it's better than having them to walk around with like a shared key. And you need that because Enforce Smart Card enforces every user, it locks down your system. You can't set a single account to not be enforced. You have the whole system enforced. So that will enforce login, for authorization, for everything. And so you're going to want to set this to true to get what we call PIV mandatory. This is not in Jamf yet, and I think it's going to be added. But we also don't do this. But if you want to have where every time you remove your card or your YubiKey that your machine goes to screensaver, then set this. I have a bunch of machines, and this would be horrible. It would ruin my day. But so one of the downfalls of smart cards right now is you can't use them at File Vault. So in order to get PIN at login window, you need to disable the FD auto login. So you're going to apply this to the com.apple.login window. I also don't think this is in Jamf. We use a custom profile for this, so you're going to want to do that as well. What this does is you will go to File Vault, put your File Vault password, and then instead of doing the single sign-on to your desktop, it will go to your login window, and then your PIN prompt will come on so that you do get true PIN to the system. So let's talk a little bit about what's new in Mojave. One of the major features added, and it's really good for those who want to make sure that your cards are your cards and issued by your CA, is certificate pinning. You're going to notice quicker PIN prompts at the login window. You're going to notice less token D issues, and most importantly, at least for me, so far in testing and from other people I've heard, no more keychain prompts. So when you put your PIN in, the first time you associate, you have to type in your keychain password, and what happens is your encryption cert wraps that password, and in 10.13, every time you rebooted your machine and you logged in, you would get prompted for your keychain password after putting your PIN in, and people would complain to me a lot. They're up here. They complain to me. I won't get any more complaints once we roll out Mojave. So how do we get here? How do we go from username and password to PIN? You like that icon?
Nope.
Yeah.
Atlanta United, people. Atlanta United.
So we, with a few scripts, we're getting we're going to go over the mapping process, how we use those configuration profiles to enforce the systems, and then also enforce smart card doesn't enforce everything, so you have to make additional changes based on your user environment. So we're going to go over what we did there. So for the mapping process, we're getting the user principal name off of our card, and then we're applying it to our local directory account. If you're still binding to AD, you can ignore this. We built our solution for local. If you're AD, all you need to do is make sure that you have that Etsy smart card login plist added to your system. Once you do that, because you have that UPN or that value that you're looking for in that file, it will then instantly click and it will work.
Yeah, so what's really cool about this particular piece of it, if you're not catching the drift of the flow for smart cards, the idea behind this and the reason why Apple started building this into the operating system is in hopes that all you would do is just slide your smart card into your sled or your YubiKey into the USB port, and at the login window, it's already mapped to a particular user that exists in your Active Directory environment. Therefore, no account creation is necessary.
But they say don't bind.
But don't bind. So that's where Apple's Enterprise Connect, PKI, and Jamf Connect could help with that scenario of making sure you don't have to bind, but still have that connectivity to Active Directory or with Jamf Connect LDAP that you might need in your environment. So that's the reason why this is so critical moving forward for all of you to relieve the stress of trying to build account creations on every device. So we're finding tremendous success in all of our customer base with this type of mapping.
Thank you. So System Profiler, the command line tool, now has smart card information. And also if you go to System Information and Applications Utilities, you'll also see the same information. This has what readers are attached to your system, what drivers are installed for said readers, token D, and for CTK. But most importantly for us, this is how we got the certificates off of our cards. So with this line, what we're doing is we're using the scauth identities command to get the pivauth cert from our card. In System Profiler, if you look at it when you're looking at your certs, everything is in lowercase and in groups of 8, so that's what we're doing here with the sed commands. This is not a real cert or a hash, so I just generated this, so there's
Good luck.
no identity associated with it. But this is what we're going to take in our next command to get the actual cert blob that we want. So with the system profiler command, we can grep for that hash, and then interestingly enough, and I don't know why, maybe Apple can explain afterwards, the certificates are single string, they're one line. It's just like one full line. So when I was doing this, I couldn't actually get the cert to work. So then I was talking with someone I know, and they were like, try this. So that's where that fold command comes in. I had no idea about it. But what it does is it folds and it cuts the line at width 67, so that when I run this command, I get a cert, which is also not real. So have fun. So then once we have our cert, we can get from here our UPN. So with OpenSSL, you can use ASN1 parse to get the information from your card. I'm not going to show you the blob. If you run this on your system, you can find your UPN. But what we did is we looked for the line that had subject alternative name, and then we just grabbed that line right there. And then from there, we get this. That's not Matt's UPN, but
No.
for the demo.
Feel
It's good
free to
enough.
email that. I don't know who it goes to. Not me.
And then afterwards, here is the attribute mapping file. But as you can see, we've added the certificate pinning field. So as long as you have your SHA-256 fingerprint hash there, when you put your card in, you would then be able to log in. It's an array, so if you have multiple issuers that you want to allow to your systems, this is where you want to put them. So you can put them as many as you want, really. We only have one, but we may have more. And when those issuers expire, you're going to have to also make sure that you update this file before they do. Because if you have people who get new cards, their cards won't work. So this is what it looks like in Jamf Pro for us. User will click on the attribute mapping option. This is in real time, so I didn't speed it up. If your card's not in, it'll prompt you for your card. And then once it sees it, in a few seconds, it will say that your UPN is mapped to your account. So our users are, in my group at least, are using DEP. So the process is you log in, you create your local account, go straight to self-service, configure this, and then once you're done, you log out, log back in, and you log in with your PIN. If I look at Matt's account, this is what you see. And if you look here, you'll see alt security identities, Kerberos, Matt@jamf.com. And that matches the mapping file that we've looked at earlier. So this is what it will look like for Matt. It switches to PIN. He puts his PIN in. And then you're going to get the good old keychain prompt. Thankfully, one time. I've honestly not had to put it in ever again since I've upgraded. It's great. And then you're in. It's going to go straight to desktop, and that's it. So before that, if you're rebooting, you're going to have to unlock File Vault with your local password. Some people use, I meant to say this earlier, they'll create File Vault only accounts. I'm not a big fan of that, especially with the secure tokens these days. So we just use our local accounts, and if they forget their password, then we use the personal recovery key from Jamf. So how do we prevent Matt from using his password and requiring just smartcard? So we're using extension attributes and smart groups for scoping, and then once they're put into that appropriate smart group, then we apply the enforce smartcard key. And I said earlier, enforce smartcard doesn't cover other things. Those things are the PAM modules and SSH. So we'll go over a little of that. As well, users lose their cards. Maybe they go on a trip and they forget it, and they need to be exempted for it. So we need an exemption process. So we'll go over that a little bit as well. So the extension attribute for us checks for alt security identities as well as the Etsy smart card login plist. And our EA does this. Basically, it looks for that smart card login plist file and then checks for any account that is above 500, because that's typically what your users are going to be, and make sure that they have the appropriate alt security identity. And for us right now, we're just doing it at jamf.com. And if there's more than one, then it's true. So for our smart card, we have if smart card mapping is true and the smart card exempt, and the smart card exempt is not 1, smart card exempt is what we use for exemption. You just flip it to 0 or to blank, or to 1 from 0 or 1, or sorry. By default, it's blank, and if you switch it to 1, then they can log in with their password. So that's why is not 1, then the machine is going to be enforced. So all of our machines by default get the smart card authentication profile. Its target is all managed clients, and excluded is smart card enforced. So once the machine is enforced, the profile on the machine flips from authentication to enforcement. And if we go into exemption, it goes from enforcement to authentication. And as long as you're on a network that can get APNS, it's instant. And it works out pretty well for us. Especially when you have those like race conditions with token D, they can run to me and be like, can you unlock my computer so I can just get in, and then usually kicks in CTK again. So in Jamf, this is what it looks like for the smart card payload. One thing to note, so here's enforcement. You cannot set enforcement without setting allow smart card. If you use defaults right, you can enforce a machine, so you could lock out a user, but Jamf made it so that you can't lock out your users, which is good.
So Apple started the process of introducing this kind of support with macOS 10.12.4. And at that time, Jamf Pro did get updated so that you can go ahead and start the implementation of this payload. So please be aware of that. That's how...
10.13.4?
13.4?
Yeah.
Cool. So with that, one of the things we want to recognize is earlier he went through some slides that at the top had the com.apple.security.smartcard as the designation for where the settings exist. Thankfully, that's all what this particular screen is, giving you guys the access to just go into a GUI to go through the process of checking these off to implement the enforcement of this configuration profile.
So one thing to note when you're enforced, if your users need to, say, a big thing is add an app to accessibility for the privacy controls. When they go to security or privacy, you're going to get a PIN prompt and then a password prompt. This also applies to the users and groups field. It's most likely due to file vault, but I've never actually gotten confirmation from that, but I'm assuming that's what it is. So be aware of the double prompt when users are getting those accessibility prompts that require admin rights, if they are admin users. But wait, there's more. Enforce Smart Card does not do everything. It does login authorization and screen saver unlocks. You still need to modify some PAM modules as well as SSH if you're doing that. So the PAM modules you're going to want to configure are sudo, login, and su. I'm not really going to go over this too much because it's kind of dull and boring, but there is a KB article that's perfect for it, and it has all the information you need for the PAM modules, as well as for SSH, we're going to go over in a few minutes.
One quick thing on the notes. Also be aware that when you do an OS update, these will revert back. So please be aware of that. You have to make sure and set Jamf Pro to monitor those files and the contents of the file so that you can go back and change them.
And that's where the extension attribute works. If you're constantly checking this on your machines, if any one of these files, PAM sudo for us, PAM login, and PAM su, if any of those don't match what they need to be, then Jamf Pro will remediate right away on next check-in. And as well, SSH, for our group, we disable SSH as much as it saddens me, but we do. If you wanted to configure your Macs to have SSH, you would want to modify SSH deconfig to have it prompt for PIN. And we do modify SSH config because I do SSH into a bunch of Linux machines, and we do have those configured for using our cards. Again, that KB article is very helpful for that. this is the extension attribute that we use to check, and it just makes sure that the SSH keychain dylib is in at the end of the config file. We're also using a alias that just does SSH-O, the library, and then you go to your server. But this would make it so that you don't have to do the alias, and if you're connecting to something that isn't PIN, it will default back to a password prompt. You'll get like a weird error, but it's just benign. So PIV exemption. Like I said, people who lose their cards, they get damaged, stolen, forgotten. If you're on a network that has APNS, it's pretty quick. It's a matter of seconds. It's pretty much finding me, or for you all, it'd be going to your help desk or having someone call, and you do the flip, and it's good. If you are not on a network or users are remote somewhere, maybe ask them to, I don't know, work on something else, not use their computer. There are options, and that KB article kind of talks over it, and we have this available. But right now, the only way to do this is to remove the MDM profiles from the system from recovery, which then means you have to do kind of a whole MDM enrollment. If they're in DEP, you have to do the DEP nag. If there's user approved MDM, so they have to go into system preferences and click approve. It works. We have something that we do, but I wish it was better.
Cool. One of the things that we started recognizing as we were helping NASA build out more smart card authentication into various aspects is, yeah, it's great to be able to enforce on the Mac, but then there's additional services beyond that, and that is logging into the Jamf Pro server or logging into self-service or enforcing it upon user-initiated enrollment. And so when you go through these different aspects, you start wondering, how are you going to enforce at Jamf the aspect of smart card at this particular screen? So what you'll see here is that we were able to do it, but again, it's using single sign-on is what it's called within the Jamf Pro server. But obviously, you guys know it's a SAML-based authentication, and on the back end for NASA, they utilize the framework of ADFS through a customized SAML authentication screen. So you guys can see here, it went through the process of logging into Jamf Pro using a smart card, and then the same thing in self-service, where they were able to enforce smart card login through self-service and forcing it to use the PIN through CTK. So it can be done. We've seen it. This is obviously great evidence of it working. And Allen, actually, that's one of his big projects that he worked on over the last year. So we're very thankful that you can get to this point now of forcing it through all these different components of Jamf Pro and our user interaction screens that do exist.
And then if you do have true SSO enabled, you won't even get those CTK prompts, because if they're using Kerberos, which we do, it just goes right in. So once I get on my network, I go into Enterprise Connect, put my PIN in, get a Kerberos ticket, and I never really have to put a prompt in unless I'm doing authorization at system preferences or installing a file or something like that. So YubiKeys. I would love to be able to use my YubiKey, which is somewhere on me, instead of my smart card. We will never replace our smart cards, but we may replace them for like our RSA tokens to use our YubiKey, because now they're FIPS compliant to do our login. So YubiKey has some apps that you can install on your system that can actually make your YubiKey a PIV. So this one in my pocket right here could potentially have the same information that I have on here, which is pretty cool. And
for Jamf's purposes, if I can get real quick, just interaction time from you guys. How many are considering YubiKeys in your organization? Okay. So that actually is some of the integration that we're kind of looking at next, is reviewing if there's deeper integration that we need to do with YubiKeys. We're starting to see a lot of interest, especially when they get FIPS validated. It started becoming more of a constant request. So just wondering, real quick, so thank you.
And also the NFCE ones are not FIPS validated, if that matters to you. So third-party support. right now, I'm looking at you. Hey. Microsoft, Adobe, Firefox, PulseSecure, and there's a few others that don't use CTK. I know
Yeah.
Microsoft's working on it, right? Yes. PulseSecure, I heard is. I've actually found a pretty cool app that does a kind of shim between CTK and PKCS11 for Firefox and Adobe. So if we can get rid of token D, we might be able to use something like that. And it'd be cool if Apple actually provided something like that for us, instead of us having to use something third party.
No response from Apple today.
Can we have a bug report in on that?
I will.
Okay, excellent.
It's a upcoming slide. So future, like I said, File Vault. It doesn't work with smart cards. What can we do with that? How can we? Do we want it to be working with the cards? Do we want a TPM solution, kind of like how BitLocker does it? How can we do it so that we don't have to use a local password? Derived credentials. There's a bunch of derived credential apps out there. It'd be nice if something was from Apple or Jamf. I don't know. Touch ID. A lot of our laptops have it. Why can't we just use Touch ID to unlock our card after the initial PIN prompt? As well, Windows actually has for BitLocker the ability to have that checkbox to add to use your smart card to unlock encrypted drives. It'd be great if we had that, and I do have a bug report in for that. So there. So this is important. They say file radars. A lot of times you get this is a dupe, or we're not going to do this, but I've learned if you do it, you can't complain. If you don't do it, don't complain. And that's pretty much it.
Questions?
We do have time for about 1 or 2 questions, so please feel free to come up to the mic and ask those. We do have another session after this, so we'll limit to a couple. If there's more conversation that needs to be had, feel free to meet these guys in the expo hall or outside.
Also, I think we have a white paper we wrote, and I think it's now public. So I'll put the link in our slides. Well, not in the slides, but in the page on Jamf Nation.
Yep, as well as Jamf also has a white paper on the implementation of smart cards using Jamf and some of those configurations that you can do and enforcement. So a lot of the content we covered today, there is a lot of publicly available, consumable stuff to read. Yes?
I didn't hear you mention any drivers. These cards, are they just plug and play for you?
Yeah. So the only drivers I need is if for certain of the readers, but yeah, they're PIV cards. They're just, as long as they meet those requirements, Apple has the drivers and CTK will just.
And the
So-
YubiKeys too, have you tried
So
those much?
Yeah.
YubiKeys are
Yeah.
plug and play.
Yeah.
So a full description about Crypto Token Kit. It is a built-in PIV driver within the operating system. One caveat is CAC. The CAC actually needs to be a CAC-NG version that happens to have the PIV slot on it. So that's the reason why it's very focused on PIV right now. So just kind of be aware of that. And that's the reason why YubiKeys tend to work, because they are just PIV.
And then, like I said, it's called YubiKey PIV Manager. You put it in, get your PIN, use the personalization tool first to generate. I could put a link on how to do it. It has all the information. And once you plug it in, it's just like a PIV.
All right. Well, CAC was the second part of my question.
Yep.
So
There you go.
good.
Cool. Oh, yeah, good point. So if you happen to change your brands, make sure you kind of let Apple know of that change and the request of your change. That way we continue to review drivers that need to be built into the CTK framework. I should say, as Apple.
Do you have any good ways of managing the CA trust chain? It seems like
So we
Manually.
install enrollment, a profile that has our trust chain.
so when they all expire at different times, do you then
We
read
continually monitor and keep track, and what we'll do is we will issue beforehand, I believe. And so, like, I just updated ours so that I have a new trust in there. So there's a new intermediate added to our chain.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of, as long as you have a group that does that, the certs, if you work closely with them, they'll get you that information, and then you can make sure that you're trusting this place.
Still just like every 6 months or whatever, when a new one expires, you got to
Ours aren't 6
put it in.
months.
Well, they're a year each, but they're in different places.
Yeah, there's
In the
overlap
year? Yeah.
in
Yeah.
timeline and frame.
Yeah.
Also build out like a advanced computer search within Jamf to monitor expiration dates that are happening
Yeah.
within a given amount of time, and that way you also get alerts of what's happening, what's about to happen in your
Right,
environment.
right.
So that's one suggestion for that.
Okay.
Outside of that, there are changes that are occurring, especially if you use the Jamf Pro server to actually do proxy for ADCS, Symantec, or even a SCEP enablement, that it is an renew functions getting built into the products, so that as the device is recognizing that that change in expiration is about to occur, that auto renew would occur.
That sounds good.
Yeah. Yep.
And with your certificate payload, what do we find about 50? You're better off having a couple of configuration profiles with certificate payloads.
I have one for each.
I mean, it depends.
That's a
on
bit
what you have.
much.
If you got more than 50, I'd say start to break it up at about 50, and it also lets you kind of hopscotch them.
Yeah, we don't have that many, so.
Cool.
Cool.
Al, can you mention a little bit about the key management key for everyone in the audience?
What about it, Jamie?
Why it's important?
Because it wraps the keychain. That's all.
Cool. Just in case everyone else wanted to hear about that little side discussion that happened just there. When you're looking at a particular PIV, especially PIV, and then CAC-NG, there's that slot that happens to have an additional certificate in it that, as Apple calls it, key management key, KMK. And that particular key, and the public key that actually exists on the card, is actually going to be the wrapper for your keychain. So please be aware that that slot is required on your PIV card in order for all of this to work correctly, especially for the auth prompts of PIN and everything else. So please be aware of that.
And when you do the PIV manager, it will do 9A and 9D. So A is authentication and D is your encryption. So if you are getting login prompts in 10.14, make sure check that you actually
KMK.
have that KMK.
Is that good? Yes, sir.
I had a quick one. Well, maybe not so quick. At NASA, what is the password management strategy? Sounds like you have to maintain a local password. You have your PIN, you have your smart card, you have an RSA token. We're facing some of the same things, and I'm in a healthcare space. So I'm just wondering, how does that all come together for your users and the experience and everything like that?
We change our password a lot. But we ultimately want to get away from that completely, and I think that's a goal. Right now, if you do enforcement, you can't use the passcode payload to reset because you can't change your password at the login window, which is fun. But with Enterprise Connect, you can do your AD sync, and then you can go into users and groups and force a reset of everything that'll sync. With Nomad PKNet, it will do a local sync for everything. And hopefully we can get that all into either Nomad or Enterprise Connect so that we can use our policies to set it every, I forget what it is, 60 days or so, and that we'd be able to sync everything.
Okay.
What's your current? Sorry, go ahead.
What I was going to say is, for a PIV eligible user, typically the PIV card and PIN and the local password profile is all they'll need. We use tokens for what we call PIV ineligible users. So recently we've got the agency smart badges, so we've been able to slim down the amount of PIV ineligible users. And what Alan was talking about is we're looking at YubiKeys for potentially those group of users, some of our partners.
Got it.
So that we can get away from tokens. But yeah, one of the reasons that Alan brought up, can we use smart cards for file while login, is that's one of our last
Sure.
inhibitors to really going to user-based enforcement or kind of elimination password.
Okay.
Does that help encompass all of this, or is there other password management features?
Well, we're moving to Nomad. We currently buy but we have local accounts. We're moving to Nomad, or mainly Windows Shop. So,
Yep.
and we have RSA tokens, and so we have not implemented smart cards. So this is helpful just to be able to bring this back and say, this will be the experience. So,
Okay, got it.
thanks.
Yeah, so that is so far been the struggle for not only NASA, but please understand there are multiple government agencies that use Jamf Pro, and the facet that at this point in time FileVault does not have PIV enablement and smart card enablement at this time. So there is going to be the utilization and need of a password to exist somehow on the device, whether it be a smart card only PIV pre-boot only user that's only for that particular aspect of it, or you take the NASA approach where you have that user-based password existing still in that file in that user account. So
Matt mentioned there is a key that you can apply where it doesn't do the handoff of the password from FileVault to the login window.
Correct.
So
Yep.
you unlock the disk, and then you're at the login window, and that's where you're utilizing your
smart card.
Your smart card.
Yeah, so please be aware that is an enforcement. So that's one of the things that Apple and Jamf are being very strong on at this time is though you might have a password at pre-boot, you can't absolutely enforce them into the login window. Now what you do with the login window is up to you, whether it's Nomad taking over the login screen or a normal login prompt with smart card enablement. So please be aware of that. It is enforceable, and that's where it will help your organization get through these mandates that
You
you
just
might have.
you have to think about it as there is a difference between unlocking the disk and logging into the
Correct.
user space.
Yep, correct. Yes, sir.
Are you throwing away FileVault keys when the computer sleeps?
Presently, no, because there is a bug. And that's what you wanted to hear?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah,
We're using the destroy
your
FileVault
computer
key
will
on
kind of
standby, but it
come up
doesn't stand
like it's
by
a-
when
yep.
the smart card's plugged in.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
File your radars.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, put a radar in for
Whoa.
the smart card logon for FileVault too.
Yes.
And we'll take the last question here, and then again we can continue
Yep.
the conversation
Yes.
after here, so we can give the next presenter time.
We're over.
If it's a quick question.
I didn't know
It's
we
a
were
quick
over.
question. How do you guys use Jamf Remote with SSH not working?
We don't.
You don't.
Yeah.
That's it, huh? Nothing?
Yep.
Yep.
Back to SneakerNet?
Or find another solution.
Yeah, there's plenty of other solutions, things like BombGuard or
Yep.
But BombGuard does not use
CTK.
token kit. No,
ARD
I have a
does not
radar in,
support.
so file radars.
There's not a lot of great solutions for remoting into your user space that exists with Crypto Token Kit.
So VNC Connect does use CTK. So if you have a VNC server, that works. And I'm using that for like assessments to connect to VMs that are running that. So that's the only thing I found that works so far.
Cool. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you all.